Righto, how's it going, guys? Um, yeah, I made a few videos before back in October last year about civil media, um, which is basically an idea for extending social media, not something that would necessarily replace it, but would be complementary to it. So I made a bunch of videos then, and then of course I've been busy with the harvest here in the wheat belt. So October, end of October, November, December, I was flat out, working bloody 12-day fortnights and 14-hour days and just getting grain off. So yeah, I haven't done much more on videos or talking to people. I made an attempt then, but yeah, I'm out in the bush, out in the sticks, so I sort of need to be in Perth for that. So I'm going to make an effort to do that a bit more before we get to seeding, which is also a bit busy time of year. But I thought I'd just give a quick update of my thoughts about civil media, because spending a lot of hours sitting on a header, you have a lot of thoughts about things, and one of them was about civil media, and I think I thought about it from 100 different perspectives, and I've just noticed a few things going on in the world. So let's kick over to the slides. Right, so I think because I just really want to keep this skeletal and not go too in depth, but I think if civil media is a cake that we can actually bake, that there's 4 really good ingredients that I've noticed, not only like in terms of theory and ideas, but in that manifest, and we can see it manifesting, and therefore it seems to be a useful ingredient, something that can actually be used. The first one is simply social media is a crowd looking for a purpose. Ben Shapiro said that on the Dave Rubin report, so I'll just show you that clip because I put it in context. I found it pretty interesting. The next thing has been a whole drama with Patreon kicking off Sargon of Akkad, but I think Patreon creators give people a common goal. That they can't sit there and say, I want to make a living by making something that doesn't have a common purpose to it. And I think that's why people support the Patreon creators that they do support, is because there's a common goal to it. Like Jordan Peterson wants to try and create an online university or online university courses that are accredited and so on. People will contribute a lot to that because it's a common goal for people. And of course, Patreon shows how willing people are to contribute to a common goal, even without much participation. So maybe I'll just put there an add participation. Participation. Right. That's a good ingredient, and if you add the ability for patrons and members to participate in acting out this common goal, people are, patrons are already contributing like 50, or they were contributing about 50 grand to Jordan Peterson, I think. Might be wrong, that might just be out of my arse. But that manifests in reality. You can't really just get rid of that. And I've rules of order, this is how Parliament works, where you've got different rules, and when you sort of look at what's going on, it's about trying to get people with different opinions, different worldviews, to put common resources or collective resources to use, and they use this to run meetings and things, but you've got this clash of opinions, and you use these rules to get to outcomes, right? And so they're very useful. They're happening everywhere. Every AGM there are rules of order that run the meeting, and you get good chairmen and bad chairmen, and if you don't really have rules of order or a good chairman, your meetings never go anywhere, and I've experienced this. So the rules of order, it's manifest, people use them, but I've just been thinking one of the real good perspectives I've been thinking about it from is the internet changes the limitations, right? Those rules of order are designed with the limitation that everybody's got to be in the same place at the same time, but the internet is always everywhere all the time, right? So if the rules of order were put onto the internet, your limitations change, So the way you conduct things in order would probably change with it. So those are the 4 ingredients. Let's just start off here with Ben Shapiro, where he talks about people on social media looking for a common goal. Where do we go, right?
I think there's something else happening too, and that is that both Twitter and Facebook, all social media, is basically something different in human history in the sense that it's just a crowd without a purpose. So it's a crowd looking for a purpose, meaning that throughout human history, when you actually had to have face-to-face interactions with people, the only reason you would show up in a crowd is because the crowd had a purpose. So where were you typically doing this? Is you were going to a church, right? Everybody was there to worship. Everybody was there with a common goal in mind, right? You were a member of the army, and so there's a common goal in mind. Anytime you were getting together, it was because there was a party, so everybody was there for the party. Twitter is legitimately people waking up and just, I want to interact with other humans. There are no other humans around. And so I'm here, and you're here, and we're all here. And look, somebody just said something. There's a common purpose. Let's jump on that. And then there's this backslapping effect of the person said something, and I mean, we all use Twitter, so we all know that if you are, the most dangerous thing about Twitter, if I could do anything with Twitter, I would get rid of.
But yeah, I think his core insight there about people looking for a common goal, that's exactly why we are on social media quite a lot. I mean, obviously not entirely, but I think a lot of that explains a lot of social media. And now I'll just go across to this video. Oh, no, sorry, I already changed it. And this is Ruben and Peterson talking about why they've left Patreon. Okay, so these guys left Patreon because Patreon kicked off Sargon of Akkad. They both make a shit ton of money off Patreon to run their shows and all their projects, and they've decided to leave it, and they seem to be trying to build an alternative. And Ruben brings up an interesting point about maybe they've got to try and define the problem, because maybe Patreon isn't really the best solution, even though it's obviously solving some of the problem.
Then demonetized further after manual review by a human. So it's Patreon, it's the supporters, the individual people that allow us to go ahead and do more of these controversial, so to speak, episodes. So yeah, just nothing that we're doing right now is against the people that have supported us or our patrons or anything like that. This is about making a stand against this ever-moving encroachment on free speech, on free expression, and the rest of it. And it's like, this is one that we just feel is the right one to make the move on.
And the reason that we jointly decided on January 15th, well, there was a couple of reasons. The first was that we thought that we might have something approximating an alternative potentially available for preliminary launch at that date, although we've decided to delay that because the user interface needs work. Because that's the other thing, right, is that there needs perhaps to be a replacement for Patreon if that's a possibility. Like, it's not obvious to me that corporations can run platforms for untrammeled communication successfully on the net in today's climate, and that would include anything I might design. But let's
not gloss over that. I mean, it might be possible that the Patreon method is not what's needed exactly for the future of the internet. I mean, this is what we're trying to figure out right now, which is why we've got every engineer, I mean, people from Google and Facebook and Yahoo and everybody reaching out to us, because it's like everyone's trying to solve this problem. And it's still, I mean, one of the things we've been talking about now for the last, well, it's really for the last year, but intensely in the last month, is what actually is the problem itself? Because until we really figure out what the problem is.
Well, I think the problem is how to regulate an incredibly diverse range of opinions. If such regulation needs to be instantiated, we could take a limit.
Righto, so I thought that was pretty interesting when I watched that the other day. So yeah, this is back to ingredients 2 and 3, Patreon and censorship, So they got rid of Sargon of Akkad, who's a very moderate chap. But there's been a bit of reporting, it seems MasterCard's behind it, because Patreon needs their infrastructure to run on, and MasterCard also needs the Swift network to run on. I don't know all the details about it, but it basically seems that people or corporations are putting corporations under pressure to put other corporations under pressure to basically censor wrong thought. Now, people are looking at alternatives, and I think one of the alternatives was Subscribestar, and PayPal has been pressuring them to block because they use PayPal's system. So it's a big mess. But what are the alternatives? There are already alternatives, and there's these, and Peterson and Rubin are trying to create an alternative, but you need an alternative that shares the common goal on social media so that it then extends it. And I think let me just put in here a couple of things. Tiers. Right, Patreon has tiers, like you can give $5 a month or $10 a month, and the creators give different rewards for these levels. A lot of them are things like, if you pay $200 a month, you can have a half-hour conversation with me, and so on. But Peterson also talks about regulation of opinion. Right, and this is just, I saw that, thought of tiers, sort of this, he talks about regulation of opinion, and it's rules of order, Robert's rules of order, parliamentary rules, how people who have different opinions come together and basically get things done even though they disagree. Setting agendas, prioritizing agendas, submitting motions into the agenda, main motions, and then you move a motion to the table. You can amend the motion. You can delay or defer it to deal with later, and so on. There's all these rules that you can use to get things done, and then of course you get to a vote, and some things, if they are going to change the constitution, you need 2/3 of a vote, otherwise it's just a simple majority. There's all these rules, and they've been used for ages, and they're used everywhere today in simple clubs and societies and so on, to get people who disagree on quite a lot to just get things done on what they do agree, right? So now Peterson's talking about regulation of opinions. That's what rules of order do. He's also talking about how do you do that online. And one of the things I've thought about recently is a lot of rules of order, the big limitation, and a lot of these rules exist because everybody's got to be in the same place at the same time. So, for example, a point of order is if there's a motion submitted and some bloke stands up and starts talking at a tangent that's got nothing to do with anything. Somebody can raise a point of order, the speaker would go, "What's your point of order?" He'd express it, and then the chairman or the speaker gets to say, "Yeah, you are talking out of your ass and at a tangent, so get back on point or you lose your turn to speak." Right. And the rule of a quorum shows this limitation, which is you cannot conduct formal business. You can have an informal meeting where you sit and chat with each other and what have you, but you cannot conduct formal business without a quorum. You have to have a minimum number of members, voting members present. And of course these can be, every group has its rules, and I suppose if you have bad rules, the group doesn't do well, and it leaves space for groups with good rules to flourish. So in the internet era, this whole issue of everybody needing to be at the same place at the same time is gone, because the internet has everyone on it all the time, and it is a place pretty much. So if you get rid of that main limitation, then how would you now use rules of order to get things done? And this is that tiers thing from Patreon. Patreon has tiers, and I just thought, fuck me, that's exactly it. Because now what limitation would you have to impose if you didn't have the limitation of people in the right time and right place? You'd have to impose limits, like maybe a cycle of, say, 1 month. And so you get the idea of people on Patreon paying X amount per month. You have a cycle of a month, and you say, we will go through an agenda once a month. And maybe the first week of that month is devoted to setting the agenda. And then the second week is broad discussion. Then the third week is specific discussion. And then the fourth week is all the voting and decision making. So you could imagine you have a tier where you pay X amount and you can observe, pay the next amount and you can contribute to setting the agenda. Hit the next amount, you can take part in discussions, or you can upload content. But if you can't upload content, you can still comment or like or upvote or those kinds of things. So that what's happening is, as the month goes on, things are getting more and more concrete into steps and actions and where the resources are going to come from. And then at the end, there are voting members. Maybe it's a certain amount you pay. Maybe everybody gets a vote, or whatever. But you have these rules so that at the end of the month, all these common resources, there are actions for those resources. We're going to take those resources and we're going to do X, Y, and Z for the common purpose that everyone's contributed to. So I just reckon that's pretty interesting. It's getting on to 16 minutes this vid, so I'll try to wrap it up. But I just think those are 4 pretty good bloody ingredients, And what I like about them is that they manifest in reality. They're not like ideal. They don't exist just in the ideal sphere. That you can see them manifesting in reality. Creators and patrons and rules of order, and you just think, I'm sure we could bloody bake a cake out of this. So here's a question: can we bake the cake? No, I don't know if I saw this on an article the other day. So it's not entirely his quote, because you'll see I just copied and pasted it, but it's where it's not his quote, it's reworded in a similar way. Alexis de Tocqueville. I don't know. Over today's swarming millions of equal, materialistic, utterly isolated individuals, he wrote, stands an immense tutelary power, which assumes sole responsibility for securing their pleasure and watching over their fate. This new kind of sovereign, after taking individuals on one by one in his powerful hands and kneading them to his liking, will spread over society a fine mesh of uniform, minute, and complex rules, which constrain even the best and brightest. He does not break men's wills, but softens, bends, and guides them. He seldom forces anyone to act, but consistently opposes action. He does not destroy things, but rather prevents them from coming into being. Rather than tyrannize, he inhibits, represses, saps, stultifies, and in the end reduces each nation to nothing but a timid and industrious flock of animals, with the government of it as a shepherd. Right, so this is what he calls the tyranny of democratic society. And he seldom forces anyone to act, but consistently opposes actions. So it's like the whole gay marriage debate in Australia, I found very strange, because it's not like gays were being forced to get married, or but they wanted to be involved in something where a group of people had agreed on the rules, and it was a traditional institution, and they wanted to be included in it. And so it's just a flattening of values, where everyone has to act the same, and if there's a group of people who are trying to create a sort of traditional institution of marriage, then it's got to be butted into, and we've got to use the government to say, well, now everyone can do it, and you can't exclude anyone. You've got to include everyone. And also, why didn't the gay community go and create their own institution, which might, they come up with a name for it, and run it. And why didn't they create? They didn't bring anything into being. They just wanted to force their way into something that already existed. And then, where these religious institutions are trying to protect things, they just can't. They're opposed. And I think he was very far-sighted. So can we bake the cake that is civil media? That's the quote, the bit in red. He seldom forces anyone to act, but consistently opposes action. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to stop this. It does not destroy things, but rather prevents them from coming into being. right? We want to remove the opposition to action, and we want to bring things into being. And that's what civil media will, that will be the purpose of it. You know, and I can think of a lot of examples. Sovereign money is one. Yeah, I mean, political parties, people within political parties, we're just trying to bring things into being and get them to have their say. Righto, that's gone on a bit. So thanks for watching, guys. That's just an update on 2020. Well, I actually better talk here about, yeah, so I made some videos, and I put them out there to see whether anyone would respond and say, hey, I'm interested and I can help you, I've got these skills and so on and so forth. But yeah, since then I've just been focused on the farm here. So January, Feb, March, you know, I've got to get to Perth, you know, so it's the odd weekend I'll be in Perth, and I'll try and, you know, meet people or arrange something to happen, you know, because I've got the idea but I don't have the skills to create a web app and databases and hook it all up and put it together, and I'm probably not the best evangelist either, and there's, you know, for the fact that I can sort of see big picture things and connect things together, that's my strength, but yeah, it brings about a lot of weaknesses. So I got to try give the idea away, meet entrepreneurs and developers, and I'm sure developers will know entrepreneurs and vice versa. I got to start thinking about maybe going to an event like Startup Weekend. Incubators and accelerators would probably need a bit of a demo, whether that's just something cobbled together so that it performs what a website would perform better, you know. And I just got to see if I can meet people and ask for a bit of a commitment, say, do you want to get involved? Like, are you going to use your skills and take this and run? So I'll try to do that. It's pretty hard there, being out here, but yeah, we'll give it a go. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.